Thank you.
Well, good morning. My name is Michael Thompson, counselor, and I'm the chair of the Economic and Community Development Committee. The clerk has confirmed that we have quorum, so I'd like to call meeting 19 of the Economic and Community Development Committee to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting. I'd like to also wish everyone a safe, healthy, and happy new year. And we look forward to a very successful 2021 coming from where we were in 2020. Today's meeting is being held by video conference. City staff are also connected to the meeting by video conference. As City Hall remains closed, the public will continue to participate electronically and can watch the meeting streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. I ask everyone for their patience with any delays and technical issues. Today's meeting, members, we are even operating a little bit differently than we had in the past. Normally, I would be in a room with the clerks and the technical staff. That's not the case today. We are all operating in a fully virtual and a remote process. I want to just, again, remind everyone that we ask for your patience as we move forward. We currently have 3 speakers who are registered with the clerk. The clerk staff have connected all registered speakers to the meeting by audio. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Economic and Community Development Committee's page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speaker box for today's meeting. Members, this is a paperless meeting. The clerk has provided all agenda material via CMP, the clerk's meeting portal. IT staff will be available to members to help with their devices should you need it. I would like to remind staff to keep their mics muted and their videos turned off unless they need to answer questions or speak to the committee. This will make it easier for me as chair and for those watching on YouTube to observe members as they participate in the debate or vote on items. Members, please keep your mics muted unless you wish to question staff or speak on an item, and ensure that your video is turned on. As part of each agenda item, I will ask members to raise their hands or unmute their mic if they wish to question or staff or speak. I will then create a speakers list and will call on members when it is their turn to speak. When voting on an item or a motion, I ask members to ensure that they turn on their videos and to raise their hands to indicate their vote. Members, I want to remind you that you must submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at ecdc@toronto.ca to help with motions. If there's any visiting member of council attending today's meeting, I would like to encourage you to turn on your video so that I know that you are present and can give you the opportunity to ask questions of staff or to speak. This will also assist the clerk staff to recording the attendance for this meeting. I know that Councillor Ainsley is visiting with us this morning, and Councillor Ainsley, good to see you and thank you for visiting this committee. Although we are in different locations today, the committee would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credits, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, and is now home to many First Nations, Inuit, Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississauga of the Credit. Members, are there any declaration of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Please raise your hand if you have any, and also to unmute your mic in order to state the item number and the nature of your interests. Okay, I see no raised hands, so we will proceed with the agenda. So, members, before I get to the review of the agenda, I again would like to wish everyone a happy new year and to welcome everyone to our first meeting of the ECDC committee of 2021. Normally, I would start the meeting with a presentation and a look at the year ahead. Since we have had a tremendous amount of time, in particular, our last committee meeting, we reviewed and with the presentation from Mr. Blake Goldring, our co-chair on the Building Back Stronger, the report of the City of Toronto's Economic and Cultural Recovery Advisory Group. We focus on a number of specific areas, and I just wanted to remind us of those particular areas, and also to sort of strategically focus our attention in terms of where we're going in 2021 with respect to the economic development, along with the reports that are going to be coming forward to council from the city manager, and also from the Board of Health, that will help us with respect to our recovery, focusing on business and cultural sectors in the city. The recommendations that came as part of the Building Back Stronger report focus on 4 specific areas. One is on economic recovery, anti-racism and inclusion, workforce and talent, and arts and culture. Now, I won't get too much into the specific of that because, as we know, we did that last month, but I just wanted to highlight the fact that these are going to be some of our focus, and our focus will be to help business and the cultural sector reopen in a safe manner. And of course, this is predicated on the advice that we will continue to receive from the medical officer of health, as well as the chair of the Board of Health, who's also a member of our committee, which is Councillor Cressy. So we'll be very well informed here in terms of the work that we're doing in collaborating efforts with all of the different groups and organizations that are out, whether or not it's the Regional Board of Trade, and also all of the not-for-profit and social groups that are involved in terms of helping to ensure that we address some of the fundamental challenges and gaps that existed prior to the pandemic, which was obviously laid bare and highlighted as a result of the pandemic and so on. And of course, we want to ensure that there is an opportunity to ensure that not only inclusiveness in terms of decision-making and so on, but also economic inclusiveness and prosperity for all Torontonians in addressing some of the fundamental challenges. We know that businesses have had a real tough time of it for the most part, particularly the small mom, paws, and small, medium-sized enterprises and so on have had a tough go. And we are all working hard to ensure that, that change that we anticipate and expect in 2021 will come sooner as opposed to later. So I'm really looking forward to working with our EDC staff. We have had numerous conversations already with staff about strategic look at how we're going to roll things out, and of course things that will be brought forward to this committee, along with the work that the city manager is doing. As we know, members, that there has been some changes that has come about as a result of staff retirement and so on, with respect to and also the departure of members of the Economic Development Committee and so on, staff members. And we are fortunate that we have a great group of talented men and women who are part of the tremendous talent set in this group that are in place to help us in order to ensure that we continue to move forward. We are going to see a new general manager in place sometime very shortly. That work has started some time ago, and we're hoping that that will be concluded in terms of naming a person at some point in the coming months. In the interim, we actually have an acting general manager, and that acting general manager, Mr. Patrick Tobin, is with us. He and I have had a number of discussions, and one of the things that we talked about was to provide him with an opportunity to make some comments, and I'd also like to suggest to the DCM for her to be able to make some comments as well. But I'm going to start with the DCM, just a quick overview, and then I will return and ask Mr. Tobin to give us an overview and some thoughts in terms of us moving forward in his capacity as acting, and he will act for a few months, and I think thereafter we will also have Ms. Cheryl Blackman will also be in this role as we move forward. And needless to say, members, I'm so very proud that we have the real bench strength in order to help us to continue with respect to our economic development and community development team to move forward with respect to the leadership for this committee. So, Madam DCM, I'd like to just turn it over to you for a few minutes, maybe just do some opening remarks, and then I will turn it over to Mr. Tobin, and then we will proceed with the agenda. Madam DCM, over to you. I think you're still muted.
How's that?
Fantastic. We can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone, and happy 2021. I'm looking forward to working with all of you. We have started the recruitment process for the GM of Economic Development and Culture, and that'll take some time, but hopefully by the spring we'll have someone appointed. But in the meantime, we have a strong team. Pat and Cheryl are going to be leading the team, Pat to start with, and then Cheryl. And our focus for 2021 is really going to be, as the Deputy Mayor has pointed out, supporting businesses and cultural organizations on reopening safely and helping move forward on the recovery process. You know, because we understand that, COVID has impacted some of our more vulnerable communities, I think it's going to be important that we work right across in every ward to ensure that as we recover, opportunities to move forward and to stabilize families is equally supported right across every ward in this community and every neighborhood. And economic and development and culture, their whole strategic plan is very much focused on promoting equity, inclusion, and really celebrating the diversity of all of our neighborhoods, our families, and our communities right across the city. So that is going to be our focus. We're going to have to work very closely with public health and with others, because economic recovery is going to be dependent on making sure we have affordable childcare for families as they return to work and that they have the spaces there. We're making sure that we continue to focus on working with our employers as we do major projects or initiatives in terms of social procurement and workforce development, and giving opportunities for youth to develop skills and, to see a future for themselves and help them pick the best path for their way forward as they decide on what they want their careers to look like and what opportunities they see for themselves in this city. So it really is going to be us working together, very much in partnership with a strong front to support all of our neighborhoods and communities as we come out of COVID and we continue to develop this city and our cultural organizations so that we can continue to be a great city that everybody can fully participate in.
Thank you, Madam DCM. Mr. Tobin?
Thank you. Through you as chair to the committee, and thanks to Juliana for setting that out. I'm acting from the period of December 18, and I just note that date in wanting to thank this committee for the generous recognition that you offered Mike Williams on his departure. So as Juliana and have mentioned, I'll act through mid-February, followed by Cheryl Blackman, while the city undertakes the search. We'll work closely with Juliana over that period on the priorities she's just outlined, and noting that interdivisional cooperation, and she highlighted their workforce development as one area, will be absolutely critical. We're using this period of lockdown to, again, refresh the information that we have about the hardest hit sectors under the EDC mandate. And no surprises there, this would include small business, retail, our main streets, restaurants, and arts and cultural venues. So we're ensuring to work with partners to pull together the best analysis that we have of those needs, work closely with TPH and get ready to serve those sectors in the area of ensuring that we're supporting clear public health direction. We're enabling people to get ready for safe reopening. We're enabling the public to understand how they operate in safe reopening. And that within that, we're also preparing to reopen some of our own services, like museums that have been shuttered, as well as putting a real focus, given the city's financial position, on intergovernmental work, so that we can access resources from other orders of government to be able to deliver on these priorities. Final thing I'd note, the deputy mayor mentioned that we have seen some attrition. Mike, certainly big shoes to fill. Sunil Johal left us last week as Director of Business Growth Services. That search is underway as well. So there'll be a real focus on building in the capacity in the division, particularly in business growth services, so that we're able to respond as effectively. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Acting GM, and you have been doing an amazing job. I know that because you and I have been talking, as well as we've seen your action. So again, we're delighted that you're in this area of responsibility. So members, we have the agenda in front of us. So let's now proceed with a review of the agenda. We have on my list here, we have 5 items plus 2 items of new business. Just before I proceed, though, I just wanted to ensure that Councillor Lai, you're okay with respect to your mute button. If you're having some challenges, I wonder if staff could just reach out to Councillor Lai, make sure that she's able to communicate as she wishes. She's having some challenges. So you can just give me a thumbs up, Councillor Lai, if you're still having some challenges, and so staff will reach out to you. Thank you very much. All right, so members, moving right along with our agenda. It's a short agenda compared to the last 2 committee meetings that we've had. The first item is EC 19.1, and it's the election of a vice chair of the Economic and Community Development Committee. Are there is there anyone interested in being selected for this coveted position?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councillor Ford.
I'll nominate Councillor Mark Grimes for the role of vice chair.
Okay. Councillor Ford is nominating Councillor Grimes for the position of vice chair. Councillor Grimes, do you accept that nomination?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Ford. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair for the Economic and Community Development Committee? I'm looking to see if there are any additional nominations for the position. I will give it a couple more seconds. I see all members. I see no further nominations for the position of Vice Chair of Economic and Community Development. So I will then close the nomination process and to congratulate Councillor Mark Grimes on your selection as the Vice Chair of the Economic and Community Development Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being there. Thank you, appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so members, moving right along. The next item is EC 19.2, Business Improvement Area BIA's 2021 Operating Budgets Report number 2. Would anyone like to hold this item or to?
Chair, I'm happy to move the staff recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cressy. All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. And members, I realize I've just done something, and that we didn't move to confirm the minutes from the last meeting from December 7th. Councillor Grimes, would you move the item? So,
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Moving confirmation for the minutes of the December 7th meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. All right, so we have dispensed of those 3 items, and Councillor Cressy has moved the report. And again, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, moving right ahead. The next item is EC 19.3, changes to the Duke Heights Business Improvement Area Board of Management. There is a staff recommendations. I don't believe that there are any speakers on this particular items. If there are, Madam Clerk, will you let me know? Okay, your silence indicate that there are none. So, members, what would you like to do with this particular item? Would anyone like to hold this item or to move this item? Councilor Ramos, I see your hands up, but you're muted.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right. All those in favor of EC 19.3, changes to the Dukes Heights Business Improvement Area Board of Management? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. The next item is EC 19.4, insurance programs for Toronto live music venues. Potential options. We have a speaker on this item, so we will hold it down. The next item is EC 19.5, theater review for inclusivity and equity. We have a speaker. This is an item that's been directed to the committee from Councillor Ainsley, and he is here with us, but we also have a speaker on this item. So we will hold this item down in the chair's name. Thank you. All right, so those are the items that were listed, members, as the agenda had been prepared. There are 2 additional items of new business. I'd like to move to add these 2 items to the agenda. The first of the 2 items is it's a letter from Councillor Cressy. It's a modification for Toronto Entertainment District Business Improvement Area boundary expansion. So, if we could show the motion on the screen. I think, members, I don't know if you've had a chance to read the item. I'll give you a moment to take a look at the recommendations. I don't know, Councillor Cressy, just in terms of timing, if you just wanted to give an overview as to what you're asking for.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. This is the Entertainment District BIA is in the process of working to expand its boundaries. The request here, as has been done in the past, is to waive the requirement for a formal meeting in light of the COVID circumstances, and rather to proceed directly to the polling. And so at the request of the Entertainment District BIA in my office, I hope that's something that committee members will consider. I think it would help to support them a great deal.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Cressy. So all those in favor of adding this particular item to the agenda? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Councillor Ainsley. All right, the next item.
Mr. Chair, is it possible we could just move adoption? Because if it's just proceeding to polling, there's really not discussion at this point, I don't think.
Councillor Carroll, your intervention is very well timed and fully accepted. So I thank you very much for that. I had just thought I'd hold it down for people to read, but I think you, Councillor Cressy, has done a good summary, and that's perfect. So Councillor Carroll, thank you very much for that contribution. So all those in favor of this item? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. All right, so moving right along, there's an item of new business from myself. It's regarding the firefighters' future of staffing requirements. I wonder if the staff could actually put that up on the screen. And I'll just take a moment to say, members, there is a tremendous amount of work that's actually being done by the Toronto Fire Services, looking at the maintenance of the level of service, and there's a body of work that's actually being done. I'm hoping that the fire chief and the fire services who are working on this workforce regarding change in the demographics, as well as the number of fires that have actually taken place over the last month or so. We've seen specifically a number of fires, one that occurred on December 11th at 6250 Bathurst. It was a 5-alarm. One that occurred on December 26th at 200 Wellesley Street. There was a 2-alarm. And another that occurred on December 27th at 1875 Dundas Street West, which is a 5-alarm. And another one that I have on my list, which was the December 30th at Oakwood, in the Oakwood neighborhood at 106 Culver Valley. There was a 2-alarm fire. Regrettably, on a number of these fires, a number of our residents have succumbed to the fire incidents and so on, which is tragic in its sense. And so we want to ensure that the staffing level is adequate in terms of responding to the number of increase in fires and so on. And I know that there is the broader review, and I think Councillor Carroll, you were responsible for putting forward a motion, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, looking at the broader service delivery of enhanced review for the fire services and so on. And this is complementary to that. There's a number of reports, and I know that the association has commissioned the ECLA report and so on. And I wanted to ensure that all of this information is viewed collectively in order to come back with a with recommendations that helps us in terms of responding to this. And certainly the leadership of Chief Pegg and others, Deputy Jessup and others in the service and so on are working with the Toronto Professional Firefighters Association and others and so on to ensure that any gaps or any deficiencies in the number of or the level of staffing is being addressed, along with the city managers and the staff report and so on. So this is this is what my intention is as part of the recommendation. So I'd like to add this to the agenda. So all those who are in favor of adding this item to the agenda, opposed, that's carried. Thank you. And I don't know if members want to have the opportunity to review the recommendation as one, and as was suggested earlier by Councillor Carroll, that we were able to dispense off the item. If you so wish, we could call the vote over that now, or we could actually hold that down.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if we could hold it, I may have a question.
Of course, thank you. I will do that. So we'll add that item to the agenda, and we'll hold it in Councillor Carroll's name. Thank you. I wondered if you could call the first speaker, and just before you make the call to the first speaker, I'd like to inform the speaker that he or she has 5 minutes to be able to speak on this particular item. At the conclusion of the 5 minutes, and I will hold you to 5 minutes, at the conclusion of the 5 minutes, there may be opportunities for you to respond to questions if there are any from members or visiting members of the committee. So, Madam Clerk, I will now turn it over to you in order to introduce our first speaker or deputy. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I had a bit of an audio issue there.
Well, we had
I
already
wanted to-
apologized in advance, so we are totally within your hands. So thank you very much. And this is part of the indication where I indicated that we asked for patience just in view of technical issues that may arise. So thank you, Madam Clerk. You may proceed.
So I can, the first speaker I can call is Sean Bowering from the Toronto Music Advisory Council, the Garrison, the BBG, and Transmit Presents. Sean, are you on the line?
I am on the line. How's the audio?
Fantastic. Good morning, Mr. Bowering.
Good morning.
You may begin, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today. Just wanted to give a quick outline of the insurance issues facing Toronto music venues. It came to light not long after the COVID lockdown. Approximately 30 venues got together for a weekly meeting or a bi-weekly meeting to, share the strife and times with one another and try and solve problems. It came to light very early on that insurance policies were not being renewed. If they were being renewed, there was drastic hikes, anywhere from 3 to 5 to 1,000% increases. We also, by talking with one another, realized that the last 10 years, the issue has come to light that it's the 300 to 400% increase with insurance premiums, mostly related to liability. We've ran down many avenues to try and solve this problem with the provincial government, with the insurance industry itself. We did get a little leeway, legroom with Finance Minister Phillips. That was to be followed up in January. Obviously, that's not going to happen right at this time. And we are looking to the who is filling his position to speak on behalf of insurance provincially. So the point being, a lot of venues are without insurance right now, or without renewal. There has been a little bit of movement on B2B solution, but that seems to be lip service. So we don't come lightly to the city to ask for assistance. This has been a good 8-9 months of banging on any door and anyone who will listen to us. So looking for options, looking for thoughts, looking for advocacy on our behalf with the provincial government, as it is a provincially legislated issue, insurance. That is the general outline. I know Tracy is going to speak to some specifics after me, but if there's any questions or comments, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bowering. Let me check to see if there are any questions of you. Check visiting members of committee first. Seeing none. Checking to see members of committee. Seeing none. There are no questions further of you, sir. Thank you very much for your presentation. Madam Clerk, the next speaker, please.
So, Mr. Chair, the next speaker on this item is up here is Tracy Jenkins from Lula Lounge. Tracy, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome, Ms. Jenkins. You may proceed. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks so much. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. And I want to thank also the music office and the staff for their work on this issue to date. And just for bringing this forward, despite it not being an area covered by the city. I'll be brief, as Sean's done a great job of outlining the challenges that are presented to the venues in Toronto. I'm speaking from the perspective of a venue operator. I manage a medium-sized venue, Lula Lounge in the West End. I'm also a board member of our BIA, the Little Portugal on Dundas BIA, and a board member of the Canadian Live Music Association, which has been looking at this issue on a national level. As Sean mentioned, even before the pandemic started, we were really challenged to find affordable and effective insurance. At Lula, we've seen our premiums triple over the past 6 years. And it's a very substantial portion of our operating budget at this point, or before the pandemic started. So when the pandemic hit, our previous insurer declined to renew our insurance. The only explanation that was given was just that they were moving out of the entertainment sector. We were forced to spend 2 or 3 months without any coverage, but it wasn't just that we didn't have liability coverage. Because we also own the venue, it meant that we had no property insurance, which was in violation of our mortgage agreement. So it put us in a very precarious situation. We were eventually able to bind something for this year, but in order to get us some kind of insurance, our agent had to go back to the insurer and present a business model that is very different from what we were doing before. They said that we would, if allowed by regulation to open up again, we would limit our live music presentations to once a week. We would only have trios. There would be no singers. There would be no brass. If you know Lula Lounge, you know that our bread and butter is presenting 12-piece salsa bands. So this wouldn't be a very good salsa band with no singers or horns. And the capacity was also severely limited. So we did bind that policy because we needed something to protect the building, but it's really not insurance for our business. So we are very happy to hear that, we're looking at some creative solutions for venues and the insurance issue in the city. And we just really appreciate your time paid to this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jenkins, for your presentation. Let me see if there's any questions of you. Checking to see visiting members. No. Members of committee? Seeing none? Okay. All right. I wonder then, members of committee, if we just get staff just to comment, and or there's any questions from staff, from members, from non-members or members, looking to see if there's any questions. If there are no questions, I'd like to maybe have Mr. Tanner comment on the presentation by Mr. Bowering and Jenkins, and obviously the status as to where things are. We know how important venues like Lula Lounge and others are to the city, and we know they've been impacted greatly, and we're doing everything possible to work with and advocate on behalf of this sector and all the other sectors in our cultural area and so on. So, Mr. Tanner, I wonder if we could get you just to comment, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you as chair to the committee. Yes, this has been an issue, as both speakers have outlined, for commercial music venues for many years, and of course, like many things, it's the impacts have been heightened through the pandemic. We've heard of exorbitant increases in premiums, as the speakers have outlined. Perhaps even more threatening, we've heard of venues being completely unable to secure insurance at any cost. the immediate effects right now are maybe a little bit insulated because many venues we understand have not carried commercial liability insurance since they're not welcoming patrons through their doors. But at such time as the public health regulations change and they're allowed to do that, it will be very challenging. And that's why the city, following the directive that came through Toronto Music Advisory Committee in December, has begun to and continued the work in exploring the options that may be presented to the city, playing a role in helping to secure insurance for the cities, perhaps for the venues rather, and perhaps offering some kind of support on that as well. I just want to make a final comment before perhaps turning over to my colleague, Melissa Ferreira, with Insurance and Risk Management, Finance and Treasury Services, who's been working very hard on this issue as well. And that is that, as both speakers alluded, there were initial discussions through Canadian Live Music Association with the province of Ontario, but my understanding is that those discussions have not led to any meaningful change or initiations of new policies. The issue is still very much on the table, and the venues are still very much in an insecure and
Mr. Tanner, you froze there, so I don't know if you can hear me. Just leave it to our technical staff to see if they can assist Mr. Tanner. Mr. Tanner, you have frozen the last, I guess, 30 seconds of your remarks. We did not hear. You're still muted. There you are.
Is that better? Am I back? How's the audio? I'm not sure what the last thing was that you heard, but I just mentioned that the discussions with the province that had been initiated have not led to anything meaningful. I think Melissa with Finance and Treasury Services can fill in some details on the city's explorations so far into how the city can support the venues.
Okay, thank you very much. Melissa?
Good morning. Thank you.
Morning.
Through the chair, I'll just, if you don't mind, for the benefit of those around the table, just to provide a bit of a background as to what's happened in the insurance industry and just, you know, to advise the group that this issue with insurance is not specific to our live music venues and that it is a market issue. So around third quarter 2019, the insurance market was hardening. So there was a reduced capacity out in the market, along with insurers not making the profits that they had through, you know, the low interest rates that they were seeing and their investments just not, being profitable. So they were looking towards making their profits purely on underwriting risk. So that was driving the hard market, and it continues to see quarterly increases across all lines of coverage internationally. So really, that's where we were. And then when COVID hit, the insurers saw COVID losses that were substantial, you know, in the hundreds of billions of dollars. So that's had an impact. Then we've had the wildfires that have created losses, as well as the Atlantic hurricane season. So continued low interest rates and these, losses that these insurers are experiencing will continue to drive this hard market. In terms of what we're doing here at the city, I've been working with Mike, along with our insurance broker, Marsh Canada, to develop a program that we can present to support the live music industry. We're ironing out some of the wrinkles that, we see with putting forward this program, but we hope that putting forward a program to insurers, and we're looking to get a group of insurers who really want to support the live music industry, with the city's support, will, the insurers will see it as a more desirable risk for them. So we're hoping that this is beneficial to the live music venues, and we will come back very shortly once we have ironed out these wrinkles. You know, and I'm consulting with the CFO as well to get her support and just work through some of the logistics. But we'll come back to this committee and to you, Chair, just once we've gone through some of those, you know, sort of fine-tuning points, and hope to have something that we can present that will get support of this committee and will benefit the live music venues.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions of staff based on the presentation and the comments that's been made at this moment? Looking at the screen. Okay, seeing none. Visiting members of committee, seeing none. Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is the clerk, Julie. I just wanted to let you know there is one more public speaker on this item.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Okay, I thought there were only two, but we can come back. We can then move to the last speaker on the item then, Madam Clerk, and thank you very much.
Yes, the individual just registered just recently. So the individual's name is Vasilios Kranis from BSMT 254.
Okay. Will you
introduce you on the line?
Yes, hello. Can I be heard?
Yes, you are heard, sir. Thank you very much and good morning. You have 5 minutes to speak. I will let you know at the 4 minutes and 30 seconds mark that you have 30 seconds left. Members of the committee and visiting members are here to hear you along with staff. You may proceed, sir.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I just wanted to give a little bit more insight into what Sean and Tracy have already mentioned. We are Basement 254 is a small 73-person capacity live music venue that opened very recently. When we first obtained the lease, it was at the beginning of 2019, and we did not have a liquor license as of yet. We hosted strictly private events with special occasion permits, and non-alcohol events as well. We were open maybe 1 or 2 times a week. During that time, we were able to get to obtain liability and business insurance. It was fairly expensive, but of course we paid it. By the time we were able to get our liquor license, which was almost exactly a year later, we got our liquor license just before Christmas 2019. That was great news, but within about a week, like just as we got back from vacation, we got notice that our insurance was dropped, that the insurance industry and that specific company no longer had an appetite for, I can't remember the exact phrasing, but basically you get the picture, nothing in our industry. At that point, we obviously said, okay, can we go to other companies? I went through 4 or 5 different brokers who were unable to even get us a quote over those months before COVID. Obviously, after COVID, nothing. We weren't even offered, like it was impossible to even have any options. Nobody knew what to do. I had lengthy conversations with individuals in the insurance industry who just would talk my ear off for ages about, I've never seen anything like this. I'm sorry it's like this, but I really can't get you anything. So we were really at a loss. We weren't sure what to do. We were lucky that our landlord was open-minded, which generally isn't the case because, of course, we did need to have insurance to be in compliance with our lease. We didn't for that period of time, and then we were closed down because of COVID. I do also want to point out that we do, of course, also pay TMI as part of our rent. We pay our landlord's portion of his insurance that applies to our unit, and of course, for that he's paying a premium as well because we serve alcohol. And because we are a live music venue. I also want to point out that as a live music venue, we do not operate like regular bars. We do not open every day of the week. We only open when we have shows. Some months in January, we were open 5-6 days because it's just quiet season, but we are generally treated as if we are open 7 days a week, serving alcohol at all hours that we're able to. This is largely not true. And the other issue, of course, is the alcohol to food calculation. I don't really want, it sounds like this isn't the forum to get into all of those things, but I did want to give another account from the industry itself and from somebody who's trying to open up a music venue and not an established place. What I can tell you is at this point of time, it is absolutely impossible for us to get insurance of any kind or even get a quote for insurance. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, sir. Are there any questions for the deputant? Visiting members, seeing none. Members of the committee, seeing none. Thank you, sir. There are no questions of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, to speakers on this item. Let me just check visiting member first. So seeing none. Did you have questions to speak?
No, to speak, sorry.
Yeah, okay, no, I was coming to you. Go ahead, please, Councillor Cressy. You have 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you to the three deputants. The recommendation in front of us here today is coming out of our most recent Toronto Music Advisory Committee meeting. And so we at this committee have discussed the issue at length. We know that venues are closing in real time right now. And the risk is not simply losing a couple dozen venues in our city, but rather losing nearly all of them. That is the risk. And so as a city and as a committee, our goal has been not just to keep venues alive through the COVID experience, but also as a long-term objective, pre and post-COVID, to strengthen venues so that they can thrive afterwards. And so the recommendation in front of us here is just as our city and this committee took new steps to initiate the tax subclass for live music venues to support them, and just as we've taken steps with the City Hall Live Spotlight program to support venues, this is to look at one additional measure, and that's the potential for a city insurance program to help support venues. As we heard from our staff, both Mike Tanner in the music office, but also staff from Finance and Treasury Services, city staff are actively considering options, and the request here in front of us is to continue and to expedite that work and to report back at our next meeting. Because I think the opportunity here is huge, and the risk, if we don't take action, is also huge. And so I thank committee members for their long support on this issue, and in particular our chair, but most of all the live music sector, who are struggling more than many others. And everything and anything we can do, we should continue to, both now, but also going forward after COVID as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cressy. Any further speakers on this item? Councillor Cressy, I would just concur with respect to your remarks and just say to you that, yeah, this is an area and an industry that we can't allow to fail. And I want to thank the staff, Mr. Tanner, and finance staff, Ms. Ferreira, for the work that's being done in terms of this consideration. And obviously, just to finally say to this sector, the city does have your back. We are interested in your survival because you contribute so much to the growth, the development, the health and welfare and the well-being of this city. This is not a city where simply we produce widgets. It's a city where we have a thriving culture, and we know that there are challenges. And, you know, to be fair, I think that the Ms. Ferreira has indicated the insurance industry has experienced a great deal of challenges in terms of claims and losses and so on. So I think it's a mitigation of risk associated with obviously the industry, taking obviously stock as to what the challenges and opportunities are. But of course, we know it has impact, and it is that in mind, that concern in mind, that we're working to try to work to help this particular sector. So I hope that we can do this forthwith in order to ensure that as we come through the process of getting over the pandemic, that we are prepared and ready to go and ensure that businesses in the sector are insured and that complying with their leasing agreement and giving peace of mind to the owners. And I certainly want to thank our the presenters, the deputants who came to speak to us this morning. It's clear with respect to their concern, and we just wanted to ensure that they understand that we are going to stand with them and advocate on behalf and to work with them to assist them. So with that being said, all those in favor with respect to the recommendations of the item? Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. All right, moving right along. Councillor Carroll, I think we are not at our item yet, but very soon we'll be there. We're next moving to the item EC 19.5, a theater review for inclusivity and equity. I believe, Madam Clerk, we had one speaker when I last spoke, and there might be additional speakers. If there are additional speakers, please let me know. But if we could proceed now to having the deputant who is listed, if you could call the deputant, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So there is one deputant on this agenda item, and that is Elizabeth Bastian. Elizabeth, are you on the line?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear, Ms. Bastian. Good morning and welcome to the committee. You have 5 minutes to speak. At the 4 minutes and 30-second mark, I will inform you that you have 30 seconds left. At the end of the 5 minutes, there may be questions of you from non-members of the committee and also members of the committee. There's a clock and that I can see, so I'll help you to understand that you have, in terms of the remaining time that you have to conclude your remarks, which will be at the 4 minutes and 30-second mark. So you may begin, and good morning and Happy New Year. Welcome.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, and I will be referring to some notes to be succinct. I've been involved in theater in the Toronto community for 20 years plus. This has been on stage, on boards, behind the scenes, hiring committees, and on respect in the workplace committees. And during that time, I've experienced and bared witness to inappropriate, offensive, and traumatizing remarks and consequences related to anti-Black racism, racism against Indigenous, Asian, and South Asian communities. There's also been incidents of anti-Muslim sentiment and sexual harassment. This includes resistance to the land acknowledgement in meetings. Local theater productions and play readings have included use of the N-word, lynchings, brownface, blackface, and yellowface. City of Toronto recreational office staff in theater buildings have told me that artists of color have told the office that, quote, "These groups have no place for me," unquote, and one individual actively diverts them to other groups. When I've reported incidents for resolution, I was yelled at, hung up on, and voted off boards. Reprisal is fierce. Theaters like Scarborough Village Theatre and Paper Mill have produced these plays, as well as other groups in private spaces within the GTA. And this is important to address because artists, regardless of background, ethnicity, or color, should feel comfortable to participate. Dealing with oppressive, offensive, and stereotypical content or roles serves to alienate and traumatize. Theater is low paying, or in the case of community theater, is voluntary. The only payback is a sense of community and achievement. And high school students often support productions as part of their volunteer hours. It is especially important to ensure that students and minors are in safe spaces and not exposed to these experiences. So I ask you to consider ensuring public spaces like Scarborough Village Theatre and Paper Mill, just to name a few, are open to all theater groups equitably and discontinue monopolization of those spaces. I also ask you to consider creating thorough guidelines for participating groups to submit action plans and reports of incidents in the last 2 years or going forward for accountability. In addition, requirements for groups to establish guidelines aligned with city guidelines to ensure safe, inclusive spaces and clear mechanisms to safely report incidents that are communicated to the city for transparency. I also ask you to consider having groups submit content that is inclusive and worthy to be in a public building. And please ensure that stringent guidelines are put in place to ensure groups that choose not to adhere are not receiving public funding or public spaces. In addition, please establish mandatory DEI and intimacy training for artistic groups participating in public buildings for board members, stage managers, producers, and creative teams. And finally, remove groups that monopolize city spaces and create equitable application process for those spaces. Finally, there are other independent groups in the city that have established diversity, equity, and inclusion policies and action plans, and they pay their artists. They can serve as a foundation going forward and should receive priority. And I've submitted previously 10 examples of productions to illustrate my points. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your deputations. Let me see whether or not there are any questions of you, visiting member. I see a question from Councillor Ainsley. Councillor Ainsley, you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor Thompson. Ms. Bastian, how long have you been involved in the theatre sector in Toronto?
Over 20 years.
Okay. And in those 20 years,
I can't hear you.
Been involved in... Can you
Councillor
hear me
Ainsley,
now?
would you repeat your question? I don't think we could hear you then. Maybe just repeat the second question, please.
Sure. Ms. Bastian, and I assume you've been active in more than one theatre run by the City of Toronto?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And I also assume that you're here today because you've read the request that I've put in to the Economic Development Committee. Are you okay with what I'm asking for?
I think that's a very positive moving forward, and that's why I wanted to be here just to support you.
Okay. Is there anything that you would add to my request?
Everything that I've tried to be succinct and made a few requests that hopefully are clear. So if you have any questions of clarity, please let me know. And please know, in addition, I am here ready to put my hand up and help in any way I can. I'm invested in this for over 20 years, and I've worked with so many groups within the GTA. And it can be good when it's good, but when it's bad, you know, I'm here also concerned of sharing those experiences, as many artists are, because they don't want to be blacklisted.
Yeah, and you would very much like to see my request fulfilled, but it needs to be done in a confidential manner, I would believe, so that people's identities are protected, correct?
I think that would be very important. There's so many reasons why. In professional theater, it happens as well. And for those of you that are interested, I think it was Stratford Festival that did a great meeting where a lot of their professional BIPOC actors spoke, and did share how reluctant they were. And it does illustrate how important it is to provide a safe place where people can speak openly.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Ms. Bastian. I really appreciate your time this morning and making your presentation to the committee. And I hope you have a safe and happy new year. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ainsley. Let me see whether or not there are any members of committee that may have questions for you, Ms. Bastian. I see none. There are no further questions of you. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Members, to speak. Sorry, Councillor.
I'll have a question. Can I ask a question of staff?
Yes, we can. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I had a question of staff as well.
That's fine. Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Councillor Ainsley. All right, so we're moving to questions of staff, and we will start with visiting councillor first. So, Councillor Ainsley, we'll start with you, and then we'll bring it into committee. We will then have Councillor Carroll. Councillor Ainsley, you may begin.
All right, thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson. To staff, and my one question is, so I do have this request before me, and I think I have the same concern that the deputant just outlined, and I have been contacted by a number of other people in the theater realm, and their chief concern, aside from what I've outlined in my request, is confidentiality in this process and ensuring that identities are protected so that people can put forward their concerns and still have their personal identity protected. Can that be done in this report?
Through the chair to Councillor Ainsley, Thank you for the question. The deputant's concerns are significant and not restricted to Toronto in terms of issues facing the theatre community and the performing arts more broadly. There are trusted intermediaries like the Professional Association of Theatres in Toronto who have been undertaking efforts to improve the competence in these areas. And I would suggest that we would work first with those as a means of affording that type of access and confidentiality that you ask of. So I think to respond to your question directly, there are ways to do it. Might be best done using intermediaries with expertise and standing on some of these issues, but certainly in terms of the provision of space to theatre companies, any group using City of Toronto space needs to adhere to any harassment, any discrimination policies for the city. So that is something that we would bear in mind in this report.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Tobin. Mr. Chair, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ainsley. Councillor Carroll, you have 5 minutes, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering, when I first looked at the motion, I was thinking in terms of making sure that we're being inclusive and promoting the groups that get in, and that work is right now very energetically being undertaken by the Arts Council. They've taken it upon themselves to really make sure that they're contributing to some of the change that we want in terms of confronting anti-Black racism in the city. And so I'm wondering if you feel the motion allows you to sort of, in reporting back, include that some of that work is going on.
Thank you for the question. Through the chair to Councillor Carroll. Yes, you're entirely correct. Be it the TOR report or Building Back Stronger, there are numerous recommendations relating to access to safe and affordable space with a focus on BIPOC artists and arts organizations. So as you suggested, work is underway with the Toronto Arts Council with city staff. So certainly we'd be in a position to talk about the progress of that work. Certainly provision of space, as noted in the last set of deputations relating to live music venues, is a bit of a shifting field right now, given the impacts of the pandemic. So we would be able to report back in an interim fashion while providing recommendations for further in the future to address the issue at a more structural level.
Okay, and then with respect to dealing with what actually goes on stage, we have faced this before, albeit a long time ago, in city-owned theaters. I'm thinking back to when it was called the North York Centre for the Performing Arts, and there was a great debate raged there between the production of Ragtime that opened that theater actually dealt with racism within its speech, but then the next production was a historical production of Showboat that is sort of a dated production that that one could take issue with. And so this whole thing opened up. I'm wondering if there are existing policies in place now, because I worry about us as venue owners venturing into an area, looking at the deputant's list that puts us in a position that we would end up censoring such productions as To Kill a Mockingbird, that is a curriculum piece of material dealing with racism. The prize-winning script Doubt that deals with sexual impropriety in the Catholic Church, particularly among poorer communities and communities of persons of color. Some of those are messages that are instructive in some people's view and not others. Do we have policy about how far we venture into passing judgment on things like that?
Through the chair to Councillor Carroll, we do. As mentioned, the city's very strong anti-harassment and discrimination policies that are subject to any recipient of cultural funding and for use of city venues provide a very solid standard to protect against egregious behavior in those areas. The city has an arm's length Arts Council in part for the reason you described, that it does not seek to police content at the level of every community theater, but imposes controls on its material support and its provision of space to ensure that we are not aiding the misrepresentation of any cultural community. The protections in place, as you said, the Toronto Arts Council was recently contacted by the City of New York to learn more about our local best practice in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I feel that there are a series of strong protections in place. And I think many of the concerns raised by the deputant, there are intermediaries in the field, in professional theater, who have been supported by various orders of government to play a role in this space that we might want to call upon to help address the needs the deputant has identified.
Right. So in your report.
Last question.
Yeah. So in your report, you would undertake to explain to us the peer adjudication method that addresses some of these issues, and then look to address any gaps for us. For instance, productions that don't go anywhere near the Arts Council for funding, and so we might find something. You would just do a sort of a gap analysis there. Is that the understanding?
Through the chair, Councillor Carroll, yes, that's essentially it. We could illustrate the protections in place, identify any gaps, propose any remedial measures.
Okay. Okay. Thanks very much. Okay.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carroll. Thank you. To speak. You may begin, Councillor Ainsley. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson. I won't take my full 5 minutes. I just want to thank the committee for the time this morning. I want to thank Ms. Bastian for coming in and making her deputation. I have to say that it's my understanding as Ms. Bastian is not alone in her concerns. I brought this forward, or this was brought to my attention in my capacity as chair of the General Government and Licensing Committee, because part of the mandate of that committee is to look after the city's assets and leases. And I believe this was brought to my attention in that capacity. I brought it before this committee because I think that in terms of economic and community development, the proper place for this to be dealt with is here at this committee. It was initially brought forward to me on a social media platform that I utilize. And I responded to the person in question. I then received a number of private messages from people that were also involved in the theater community in the city of Toronto, bringing forward the same concerns around inclusivity and equity. And they brought it forward to me on a social media platform and by emails in a confidential matter. Their concern was chiefly amongst all of this that to be consulted properly, it had to be done in a confidential manner. So I appreciate Mr. Tobin's discussions around using a third-party intermediary. I think that will help move this forward. So I thank you for the committee's time, and I hope that everyone will be supporting my request. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ainsley. Take this matter into committee, see whether or not there's any members of committee to speak. Councillor Carroll, did you wish to speak? Okay, you have 5 minutes, Councillor Carroll.
Thank you. Well, I'll just speak briefly. I just wanted to let the committee members know that I asked the questions I asked because I do want us to be very careful as we go through this, that we do have to tread carefully. There are, of course, responsibilities that we want to take, particularly in venues we own or productions that we fund, to make sure that in casting opportunities, we have mountains of Black theatrical talent, and so a Black person can easily play a Black person in any production. That's absolutely true. There are some productions that don't need to be mounted in this day and age. But there are also some that I would hate to see lost, masterpieces. And so I asked the questions I asked to make sure that staff will come back to us, really educating us on the care that Toronto Arts Council takes in this regard, and and looking for any gaps, places where we do have to be careful because offense was taken, but others where there is a great deal to learn. What Atticus Finch teaches his children about racism is a really important lesson. It's a piece of school curriculum the world over. So, you know, some of these are debates that are going to go on forever and ever. Amen. And we have to decide whether we want to be in them or not. But I'm satisfied from the answers to the questions from Mr. Tobin, that they understand that that's going to be a difficult part of this work, and that they are going to tread carefully and come back with the most workable solution for us. So I thank him for that undertaking. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carroll. Seeing whether or not there are any other members of committee who wishes to speak on this item. Okay, seeing none, I will just take a moment to thank Councillor Inslee for bringing this matter forward, and to thank the speaker for the deputant for speaking on this matter, and also to thank Councillor Carroll, because I think that Councillor Carroll highlights the complexity in terms of these issues and so on. There's a historical element to these things that are worthwhile in terms of lessons learned, although the depiction may be offensive to some people in terms of some of the comments you talk about the varying place. And I think that I'm satisfied with respect to the staff in terms of understanding the delicate balance and the nature of this. I mean, speaking to the motion itself, I mean, it is intended on helping that access not only to funding, but as part of the equity is fully understood. It was something that we recognize as well as part of the Building Back Stronger report that was submitted to committee last month, and the challenges that we know that the BIPOC community has in this particular sector. And I think particularly city venues, I mean, as Mr. Tobin has pointed out, we have policies and we have rules that highlights what are acceptable modes of conduct in city-owned facilities and so on. And while there are fine lines in terms of that we have to walk with respect to addressing some of these challenges, these are gaps that existed in our cultural and theater sector for some time. I too have been hearing rumblings around concerns that people have, and I think the issue in terms of ensuring that people have confidence that their privacy will be protected is extremely important, to be able to get the information forward to staff, and then for staff to be able to assemble and assess and dissect and then come up with ideas in terms of how we go forward in terms of ensuring that as the councillors requesting inclusivity and equity, it is not just simply words on paper and or comments that we make, but we need to ensure that we see full reform in terms of this particular process, and that leadership has to come from us and with the staff and the recommendation. So I do look forward to the information coming forward, and I think that whether or not it's the TOR report or the Building Back Stronger report, along with the work that Councillor Carroll has pointed out that the Arts Council is doing, there is a recognition that there are some problems, and then there's a requirement for us to fully respond to it. I mean, the days of lip service to these issues are gone, and they should be fully, dispensed with as we are dispensing with COVID and so on, and move forward so that we can get that true professionalism, and we can ensure that, the amputation of the spirits and or professionalism of those folks in the BIPOC community and so on are not, if you will, reinforced by the actions of some, and ensure that we create this inclusivity that will ensure that the talent of the greater community is recognized and celebrated and so on, and not be diminished based on race and or the differences that some people perceive that comes with respect to either cultural differences or racial differences. And we want to basically enhance the opportunity in which create opportunities for people to really reach their potential. And this is really what it's all about, optimizing and reaching excellence so that we all will be better for it. And so I think that it's time that we address these things. I look forward to staff bringing back the report, and I could move the item. So all those, unless there's any additional speakers, I see none. All those in favor? I only see two hands, Councillor Cressy and Councillor Carroll, and I see Councillor Ainsley's hand, but regrettably, Councillor Ainsley, you know the rules there, but do appreciate you encouraging members to put their hands up. All right, opposed, that carries. Thank you very much, and again, thank you, Councillor Ainsley. Councillor Carroll, we're at our last item, which is the firefighters' future of staffing requirements. You indicated you had some questions.
Yeah, I just had a quick question of staff.
Sure.
There is the review coming, and so this motion asks that it just be, you know, a comment attached to that review that's coming. But I just want to make sure in moving this motion now, so close to the budget process, based on the recent incidents, if in the budget process we should decide that we want to address this in part within the 2021 budget process, is it staff's understanding that asking for this further report in 2021 doesn't tie our hands? We wouldn't find in the budget process, should we decide to direct some extra dollars here, we wouldn't be told no, economic development seized of the matter, and so you can't add it. Would we still be okay if we want to add something this year?
Deputy Jessup, maybe we'll ask you to answer.
Yes, Mr. Chair, can you hear me? I was having trouble with my audio.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you. And your voice sounds great, by the way.
Thank you, and Happy New Year to everyone. So through the chair, Councillor, the position certainly that Chief Pegg has taken in the past, and I'm certainly acting for him right now, is anytime we feel there's any issue regarding fire protection service levels and staffing and safety, we would bring a report as dictated in the FPPA through to council immediately. So you certainly have my assurance, and I know I can speak for Chief Pegg on this as well, that if we had any concerns at this point in time or any time, we would bring a report, through the proper channels, through ECDC, right to council regarding that. So my understanding is as we continue to work through the review that council directed us to do so through your motion last year, and if I identify any concerns whatsoever, that will certainly be brought through this committee at the most expeditious time.
Okay, thank you. That takes care of my concerns. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Councillor Carroll. Seeing whether or not there is any additional questions and so on. Okay, did you wish to speak, Councillor Carroll?
Fine. That was all I was concerned about.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. I certainly want to thank Deputy Chief Jessup, and certainly the leadership of Chief Pegg and the outstanding men and women of Toronto Firefighter Service, Toronto Fire Services. They do a tremendous job on a daily basis and so on. And we know that there are challenges. And I highlighted the number of recent events relating to the number of fires and so on. And as the deputy has indicated through the question from Councillor Carroll, that their hands are not tied in terms of limiting responding to the needs as they see it, that there is opportunity to bring forward to council at any particular point in time staffing requirements and whether or not it's equipment requirement as well that are needed to ensure the health and safety of the citizens and the residents of Toronto and so on. And so I want to thank the Deputy Chief for his leadership. My motion is that simply to be part of this overall service delivery enhancement review. Additional information has come forward, and I just wanted to ensure that that additional information could be formed as part of the work that's actually being done. Certainly does not in any way prevent them from, as the deputy has indicated, always being able to bring forward requests through to council, through this committee, on matters that are obviously immediate in terms of needing investment to ensure the health and welfare and safety of certainly the public, but also of the men and women who are, frontline heroes, so working in our Toronto Fire Services and so on. So with that, I would like to move the recommendation that's there. I don't know if there's any questions further. I don't see any because we're speaking now, but all those in favor of the recommendation in the additional item, opposed, that carries. Okay, thank you. And thank you very much, Deputy Jessup, and thank you, Councillor Carroll, for the questions. Members, we have, I believe, reached that point where we have exhausted the short agenda. It's 10:56, and I'd like to ask Madam Clerk, I don't know whether or not there was any additional things that you may wish to comment on or anything that we may have missed. I just wanted to make sure I give you the opportunity to make comment just because we're operating so remotely, and just to ensure that we haven't missed anything, to ensure that we are in compliance with respect to our orders and procedures.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I can confirm that all of the agenda items have been dealt with and that there are no further public speakers on any of the items. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your input and your leadership, and thank you to all the staff. I'd like to maybe ask for a motion to adjourn. I see the hands of Councillor Lai. Thank you very much. And all those in favor, opposed, that's carried. Thank you very much, members. I wish you and staff a good day. Please stay safe and healthy. All the best. Thank you.